evening to every single person who has joined us this afternoon. We're live from Lagos, Nigeria. So, but in case you're joining us from any part of the world, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you. Welcome to another edition of the Business Days Policy Intervention Series in collaboration with the Great Place to Work. As West Africa's premier provider of business, financial intelligence, and market news, as well as our position as the most trusted media outlet by the Nigerian investor community, we consider our position crucial in shaping and influencing policy directions in Nigeria by facilitating dialogues with captains of industries and business leaders. And so the policy intervention series was created to convene industry experts, government representatives, stakeholders to analyze pain points and leverage collective expertise for policy information and execution to drive economic growth in Nigeria. This year, Business Day has hosted 5 policy intervention series, starting with the energy sector, where we discussed the future of energy. We have also convened bankers to talk about the recapitalization process as directed by the Central Bank of Nigeria. We have looked at the strategies for safeguarding press freedom in an increasingly digital age. We've talked about the recent export-unfriendly policies and what they imply for the Nigerian economy. And just 2 months ago, we had the former governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, Patrick Njoroge, deliver a keynote on fintech in Africa, navigating cross-border regulations. And so today, we have the pleasure of hosting another policy roundtable in collaboration with Great Place to Work. This time, we're going to talk about how great places, great workplaces build high trust cultures, prioritizing employee well-being to raise productivity and drive overall business growth. The theme for today is the trust imperative, lessons from CEOs of great workplaces. And we're going to be listening to 4 exceptional leaders of great workplaces. And when I say that they are great workplaces, I mean that these companies are high-performing organizations recognized by the Great Place to Work as companies with excellent work cultures, providing an enjoyable experience for their employees. So once again, on behalf of Business Day Media and the Great Place to Work, I warmly welcome every single person who has joined us here today. I promise you that you're in safe hands, you're in safe expert hands, and your time here will be well spent. It will be worth your while. My name is Zainab Aderounmu. I'm a banking and finance journalist at Business Day Media, and I'm excited to be one of the moderators for today's policy series. Don't worry, as the session goes on, you will see other moderators, you see very beautiful faces. I don't want to introduce them because they will do that by themselves. So in final preparation for takeoff, it's like we're on a journey, and so we're about to take off. I have the honor of introducing, to deliver the welcome remarks, and also to introduce us to Great Place to Work, the country manager of Great Place to Work Nigeria, Otamere Elegon. Over to you.
Excellent, Zainab. Really looking forward to this session this afternoon. About 12 years ago, when Great Place to Work entered Nigeria, we had the founders, Mr. Malomo and Obagandi, the son of Bomosho, who are the founders for the Great Place to Work Nigeria arm. And the question was posed to them and said to them, are you sure we can find 10 great workplaces in Nigeria? But guess what? 12 years down the line, we have certified over hundreds of companies as great workplaces. And so we know without a shadow of doubt that there are even way many more great workplaces that are looking to be discovered as we go along this journey. A bit about who we are. The concept of what we do and preach is around trust. We believe that the companies are great workplaces because there are great levels of trust embedded in their processes, in their policies and practices. And so for us as a company that was set up about 1992, the concept has always been around trust, to see, do employees trust senior leaders? Do employees trust themselves? Do employees trust what they do on a daily basis? And we say, well, we see a company where these trust levels are high, we are most likely to have a great place to work. And also, too, we've been able to point out the fact that where employees are happy at work, where employees are better engaged at work, where employees feel a sense of belonging and being part of the organization, they're able to contribute more to the organization. They're able to engage their customers better. Employees who are happy at work give us happier customers. And invariably, it impacts on the return on investment for business. And so we say great workplaces are places where high performance companies outshine the market. And we've seen that over across the globe. We are operational in about 170 countries where this survey has been done. And for most of all these markets, we see clear indicators that where companies are good workplaces, they outshine the market based on that simple understanding that trust is the reason that gets people having a great relationship. And if you come to think about it, even the relationships we have at home with our family members, with friends, is all basically around the foundation of trust. And so for us, trust is the foundation, and trust ensures that the values of the company's business comes alive. Between your company's mission and your company's vision, and your company's values, the house of your business. So emphasis for us goes beyond what companies do to why they do it and how they do it. When companies can define the hows and the whys of their business, leadership becomes effective. Leadership is effective because it's driven by the right values. So if we say integrity is a core value at your organization, I don't expect that the HR team is spending 3 days preaching to the team about integrity. It's supposed to be something that is lived by their daily practices. And when leadership is effective, human potentials become fully maximized. Everyone counts to achieve company's objectives. And when potentials are fully maximized, it becomes a case that everyone becomes innovative in their space. People come to work on a daily basis saying to themselves, how can I improve product and service offerings? How can I help internal customers? How can I help external customers? And invariably, financial growth is most likely to happen for the company. So I will end at this point and say we're looking forward to a very great time with laudable speakers that we have today. Over to you, Petrina. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Otumere. I'm absolutely delighted to join you all this afternoon. I'm Dr. Petrina Carmody. I'm an executive coach and senior consultant with Great Place to Work Nigeria. And today I'll have the privilege of talking with Wole Ejimisimi, who is executive director for Wema Bank in Lagos. It's an absolute privilege to be joined by you today, Wole. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Petrina.
Thank you so much. Together, everyone, the two of us will be talking for around about 25 minutes together, we anticipate, and we'd love for you to pose questions. If you choose to do so, please type your questions into the chat, and in the last 5 minutes, we will cover those that we can in the time. We really appreciate your joining us today. All four of the speakers that we have today are from esteemed, very, very high-performing organisations who absolutely get their employee experience and cultures right. We're very lucky today to gain some wisdom from Wema Bank in terms of innovation and continuous improvement. Otumere has mentioned to us that trust is the foundation, or in my words, the magic ingredient that unlocks high performance. And so our focus over the next, 25 minutes, let's say, is on innovation and continuous improvement. But before we get into that, Wole, would you be kind enough to introduce yourself briefly and your role at Wema Bank?
Thank you very much, Petrina. Again, my name is Wole Ejimisimi. I manage the Lagos Business Directorate at Wema as an executive director. I also have oversight function for remedial asset management, and I'm also the executive chief compliance officer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wole. And Waymer Bank is very much a household name, but would you mind just for us, just describing it how you would in a sentence or two, just to give us a flavour of your view of the bank, how you would describe it?
Waymer, I will say in a short word, is innovation on steroid.
Very good.
Innovation on steroid. We pride ourselves as a thinking organization, as a smart organization, because we prioritize trust and innovation. And over the years, for an organization that existed for 79 years, by May next year will be 80 years. So that counts for something. Yeah. We have reinvented ourselves over time. So we believe that we are an organization that truly and truly we have emerged, and we have reinvented over time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for joining us today to share, I hope, some of the secrets of that innovation. Before we do that, as we're first, I wondered if you would mind just talking about a bit more about trust. How would you define trust at work? What impact would you say it has at Waymer Bank?
Truly, I mean, Mr. Otawere said it all. Trust is the foundation of a healthy and productive relationships, whether at the level of individuals or at the level of organization. And we think that it is critical for organization to build a culture of trust for the employee to thrive. We always say a trusting organization thrives. Absolutely, it thrives. So one cannot overemphasize the importance, because the benefits cut across both the organizations, the individuals, the stakeholders of the company, like the shareholders, and of course the government. So I think trust is actually the foundation. If you want your company or an organization to do well, pay some attention to building trust within the organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So with trust, you thrive. And so then this notion that so many of us have of the common sense notion that we have the sense that trust exists or doesn't exist. How do you, in your experience, drive trust and innovation? How do you drive innovation? And how does trust drive innovation in the bank?
Now, trust and innovation are very interwoven, and it starts with, if you need to drive innovation, you need to pay attention to trust. What do I mean? You create an environment where people can express themselves, where people can discuss freely. And when they discuss freely, without fear, without that psychological fear that you can bring. So that engender cooperation among teams. When teams work effectively and without fear, it produces results. The idea of innovation is about being able to be agile in thinking. When teams members come together without fear, they innovate. Ideas come. They can express themselves freely without any fear that, oh, my ideas is going to be shut down. No. So that freedom helps you to innovate. And when you innovate, you try it out. Sometimes your ideas may not be implemented. But I keep saying, the journey is as important as the destination. And there are no bad ideas. So an organization that have a culture of openness will thrive, and trust underlines and underbellies this, in my view. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So passionately, it sounds like it's about driving a culture where there is no fear, where I can express myself freely, and where it's essentially safe, because I can say what's on my mind, and yeah, it's safe to do so and safe to take risks.
Absolutely.
Are there any, I don't know if any spring to mind, but are there any examples of innovation that you could share with us and you'd like to share?
Okay, let me share example of WEMA. Okay, we pioneered the African first digital bank a couple of years ago, and over time we have engaged in what I would call incremental innovation. Now, how did we get into that? Is bringing together teams. Typically, we have our new recruits, okay? Young guy coming out of the school. When we employ them, put them into a training school, and embedded in that training program is the innovation team, okay? And they're able to work together, and over time, bespoke products have been developed through that interaction. So you see that embedding teams working together, and also it also helps in getting the innovative spirit out of the team. Today we have two products. There's a product called Co-op. It's a special product for cooperatives in Nigeria. That product was as a result of these cooperative cross-functional teams working together in an environment where people are not afraid to talk. They are not afraid to express their ideas, even when the ideas are not implemented eventually. So I believe that is one critical example of a success story in WEMA of developing a team that is trustworthy and can innovate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so it's providing the infrastructure, it's having the Nerthia culture where you're free to express ideas, and I'm assuming it's also celebrating the success, because success breeds success. And thinking perhaps outside the bank and perhaps more generally, how would you advise people to foster a culture where taking calculating risks and making mistakes is okay to innovate and it's the norm? How can one make that become the norm?
In fostering the culture of innovation and getting teams to work without being afraid, it has to be deliberate. It has to be deliberate and intentional. And I dare say, leadership has a big role. Leadership has a big role. One, leadership must foster a culture wherein employees trust leadership. And it will not be something that will happen just like that. It has to be, it will be a journey of leadership being intentional about trust. They say what they do and they do what they say. Yeah. Okay, and I think it's critical for leadership to evolve in that sense. I also think that you must get your teams to work collaboratively.
Right.
You must find a way to also reward when they do work collaboratively. We must find a way to reward them. Small successes have to be celebrated, in my view. I guess these are one or two of the suggestions I can make. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wale. Very good. And so then it's critical to reward success and reinforce success and in terms of driving innovation. A challenge that we often hear about is how we build trust between teams. What strategies have you found most effective to sort of build trust between teams so that this innovation happens naturally?
Thank you very much. Building trust within teams, again, as I mentioned before, it won't happen just like that, in my view. It will have to happen the leaders being deliberate and intentional about it. We must be deliberate in bringing teams to work together. It's when they work together, they begin to trust themselves, they begin to understand themselves, So deliberately, steps must be taken to agree cross-functional teams. It is that opportunity that's being presented to them that we ensure that they know themselves, that even when one speaks in a particular way, you know that, oh, this is just who he is. Trust is built, in that regard. So deliberately creating cross-functional teams, ensuring that they work together, helps to build trust among teams. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So as you said, it's intentional. It doesn't just happen. You need to be deliberate, and trust takes time. And I loved what you were saying about you getting to know, so you know the other people. Then that's part of the glue of developing trust. I was interested earlier in the conversation when you mentioned about innovation, that it's important to create a no fear space where I can suggest an idea. Not be right. It may not be something we want to take up now. There may be a whole range of reasons, but no matter, that doesn't matter. I'm comfortable to suggest it. One of the areas that I'm particularly interested in is in the role of feedback on ideas. And so, because I think that's essential to continuously improve, how do you drive sort of feedback of ideas into normal working processes and response to all these ideas?
Now, I think feedback is essential, very essential. One, if you are to create a trusting organization, you must create an environment where team members are able to give feedback. And feedback here, it has to be from bottom to top and top to bottom. The more difficult area is the area of feedback from bottom up. When a leader is able to listen to subordinate employees, give feedback, sometimes critical feedbacks. How do we take it as a leader? But if you must embed feedback mechanism as a trust building element, then as a leader, you must go all out to ensure that you create avenue for feedback. Whether those feedback are positive or negative, you have a way of absorbing it. The critical problem I do see is ability to give feedback that are not too palatable, negative, but sincerely, there's no organization that can develop without the readiness to take both positive feedback and negative feedback. As I said, it's easier when it's coming from up to down. A lot more difficult when it's from down to up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, yeah. So again, it sounds very much that it needs to be intentional, that leaders, and I don't put words into your mouth, but leaders need to understand it's important and actually role model that feedback, as well as sharing feedback, and as you say, both positive and improvement feedback.
Right.
How, I don't know if you have any thoughts on how leaders can be supported to do that, or how you can improve openness feedback in organizations.
Feedback to an organization, improving it. The employee must be made to be free. Feedback amongst team is easier to deal with than feedback from employee to the seniors. But we can't re-emphasize it more than the fact that a leader must be deliberate about it, must be intentional. He must create opportunities for feedback to be given. And as I said before, feedback from bottom to up is the most difficult one. But I can't re-emphasize it enough for the fact that leadership has a big role, really, a big role. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so leadership has a powerful role there in creating the sort of culture where art do feel able to create the bottom-up feedback. And thinking about sort of innovation and continuous improvement more generally, in Waymer Bank, how specifically do you reward innovation?
Okay, for us, let me backtrack a little bit and say that innovation in Waymer is something that we take deliberately. Whether the innovation is big or small, number one, we recognize it. We don't dismiss ideas, and we have structures. We have structures to collate ideas, innovative ideas. And we encourage team members to welcome and process ideas. And we have structures. There are four basic structures that we have. We have an innovation idea box wherein employees can go online and throw in ideas. And back end, there is an innovation team that processes and shifts through those ideas. Okay. We also have a physical idea lab, innovation lab. Okay, wherein you can go in there and then you can display your innovation. So for us, deliberately, we do not despise any innovation, any idea at all. We have a structure to process it. Even when we reject it, we reward the effort. Effort must be rewarded. And we recognize staff that are making effort. And when your innovation gets implemented, you are also celebrated. So for me, these are the steps that we can take to foster a culture. And that's why in Waymer, we've tried our best. We can't say that we are there yet, because a lot, for instance, we continue to do incremental innovation through this process of creating a structure, capturing those, processing them, and also reward and recognition for drivers of innovation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, so I had three parts there, and something that struck me as the really powerful was the one that ran through it, which I felt was about listening and receptiveness and openness, that leaders at Waymer drive the culture, that we want these ideas, we listen to them. And so that sounds like the backdrop for the fact that then yes, of course, you have the right structures, you have structures that work for different people, you have the feedback loop, but fundamentally behind that, you have a culture that listens and encourages. And I very much liked hearing the notion that, you know, all ideas are good ideas and what you reward is the effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
Clearly the success as well, but I think it's very important, and I wouldn't want to have that missed, you know, because I think that in terms of success point, I imagine that's key. Before our time is flying by, but I'm going to cheekily ask one more question before we open the floor up to other people's questions, if I may. And that's, what is the most important advice you would give fellow C-suite leaders looking to drive a culture of continuous improvement and innovation?
Right. For the CEO or leaders of organizations that must build a culture of trust, my first advice would be, it won't just happen.
Right.
It must be deliberate and planned. Secondly, I will say to the leader, it starts from you. That culture of innovation and trust has to be exemplified by your own actions and deeds. You know, it won't be a case of, don't see what I say or see what I do, and you don't also do it. So leader must exemplify that by, you know, standing up and leading the way. And the leader also, as I said before, must be ready to appreciate, celebrate, recognize the little effort at innovating. And trust as an element of building innovation has to be earned. It has to be earned. So there must be opportunities for people to make their mistakes, learn from their mistakes, and as an organization, so there's a concept of failing forward, that there's no organization that can move forward if you don't have a way of learning from mistakes and allowing people to make mistakes. So as a leader, as a CEO, I will say build into your system a structure, a process that will ensure that you don't kill people for making mistakes. Let them make that mistake, draw the lessons from the mistake and move on. I do say, I've seen a case where somebody made a mistake, and rather than using that to be an opportunity for improvement, you take away that action, that assignment from that team and give it to another. It would be a big error for a CEO. Rather, ensure that you pass the corrective message, let the team return back to that same task and use the benefit of the mistake made to improve the process. So for me, that would be one or two things I would say to a fellow leader in trying to build trust and innovation in the organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wole. Now, we have wonderfully 2 questions on the chat, and I think, if we may, we'll touch lightly on each of them.
Right.
Our first one is from Jide, who says, do we think trust and the absence of fear or reprimand must be Siamese twins to create an environment worthy of repute?
Absence of fear, it's important for us to address. Thank you very much, Jide, for bringing that. For me, what that does is when an organization or when an employee are in an environment where there are no fears, they're able to then they are a bit measured. You want an organization where ideas flow freely. And that's why you must deal with the issue of fear factor. Usually, how does the fear factor breed? It's when people make genuine mistakes and you bring out the sledgehammer. That builds fear. But if you take mistake as an opportunity for improvement, then likely your employee will know that, oh, I am allowed to make genuine mistakes here. And they see every mistake as opportunity for improvement. And I think that is very key. Thank you.
Thank you. So yes, how you drive a culture so people conceptualize mistakes in the right frame. Thank you. And for our second question, Davis has asked, I believe culture plays a role in terms of feedback amongst teams, where it is harder for feedback to flow, as you said, from bottom to top. As you said, my question is, how do we make the work environment more conducive for feedback from the bottom to top? So, yeah.
For me, there must be a deliberate effort. See, it will not happen in a day. It won't happen in a day. There will be trial and error, and there will be moments where, but if you as a leader you are deliberate in ensuring that you encourage, when it happens, when feedback happens, celebrate it. If, for instance, an employee is bold enough to approach a CEO to make a suggestion, no matter how stupid, okay, that suggestion is, you don't throw it to the dustbin. And you can celebrate it by bringing that employee out and saying, look, this is good for us. More of this is encouraged. And gradually, more confidence will be reinforced in others to say, oh, come on, this is not too bad. I can also open up my mind. And I think for me, that would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think you may have addressed this really. The final question, we probably should not be greedy with time and wrap up, but the final question we had was, if a superior becomes offended by feedback, what do you do as a leader? Feedback from his subordinate. So, yeah.
Sorry, let me get that again. Please come again.
So the question is, what would you do as a leader if a superior becomes offended by the feedback from his subordinate?
Okay. Now, as a leader, number one, I will encourage you, if you must build a resilient organization, not to take things too hard. If you feel offended, it's also not out of place. You could dimension either the way and manner the feedback was communicated. The feedback will also have been a product of lack of adequate information. So it is your responsibility as a supervisor, as a leader, to also let the employee know either the correct situation in terms of information and the areas where he or she has missed it, in a manner that you will not prevent him from coming back the next time. I think that is very important.
Yeah, keep the channel open and acknowledge your own feelings, but keep
All
them
right.
open. Thank you. Wale, I'd like to say thank you so very much for your time and wisdom and care this afternoon. It's been very valuable talking with you. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, as we draw our conversation to a close, I'm going to now hand over to Zainab to talk with James. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, thank you very much, Petrina and Oluwole. That was very interesting and insightful, even for people who are not yet CEOs and executive leaders yet. There are so many lessons to actually draw from it. Thank you very much. If you're just joining us, you're once again welcome to the Trust Imperative Conference brought to you by Business Day and the Great Place to Work. In this session, I'm going to be discussing with the Group Chief Executive Officer of GZ Industries, James Judson, and we're going to be talking about trust through accountability and empowerment, balancing support and expectations. Hello, James. Good afternoon. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the time and the opportunity.
Oh, okay, amazing. So I know that I already introduced you, and I, mentioned your name, mentioned your company, but I really would like you to sort of tell us more, about yourself and your role at GZ Industries.
Okay, so as you mentioned, I'm the Group CEO of GZ Industries. We have a number of plants across Africa, mainly in Nigeria and South Africa. GZI is one of those companies that not many people will have heard of, but they will know our products very, very well. We make aluminium cans for some of the biggest companies in the world, whether that's Coca-Cola, Heineken, Diageo, or ABI. So every time you're having a beer or a soft drink, I'm sure you're touching our product. And I would say GZI is more than a company that makes cans. I would say that we're a way of life, and we're a big part of the life of not just our employees, but also their families and their communities. And we take our role very, very seriously in enhancing the lives of those people that we come into contact with.
All right, thank you very much for that introduction. In the same vein, how would you describe your organization? Let's touch a bit on the culture and how you sort of achieve the goals of the organization.
So I would say our culture is driven by two things, really. One is a very clear vision, and that is to become Sub-Saharan Africa's leading aluminium beverage can supplier. And we were late into the market in many ways, but first in Nigeria, and we've built a strong foundation there with a very clear vision of where we want to go, and also a very strong sense of values that are shared by everybody that work. And we have our values summarized very nicely into a very, very powerful call to action. Yes, we can, with quality, safety, leadership, teamwork, integrity, commitment, innovation, and interestingly, accountability as one of our core values.
All right, that's very interesting. When I started by saying that every single speaker who is on this session has been recognized as a high trust culture organization, and they've also been recognized as Great Place to Work. So it's good to hear you describe your culture at your company. So now let's start by exploring what accountability really is. When we talk about accountability in an organization, what does that mean to you, and how does it matter to organizational success?
I mean, let's start with the second part, which is in terms of what does it, does it matter? I think it's fair to say very much it is one of the foundations of success and of building trust. Without accountability, it's very, very difficult to empower. It's very, very difficult to get things done. And for us, accountability is about taking responsibility. It's about being responsible to do what needs to be done and need to do what you've said, and also to take responsibility for the outcomes, and to put your hand up and say that the positives and the negatives, these were as a result of something I did, and we've learned from that, either with the positive result or the negative result that comes. So it's very much linked to action and responsibility.
Okay, great. So now that we know that it's really important to organizational success, how do you drive a culture of responsibility taking? How do you drive that culture of employees actually doing what they're supposed to do, and doing what they even say that they will do?
I mean, this is a constant journey. I think anybody who's been a leader of anything from, leadership is, from the lowest level of any company, it is from you yourself, delivering what you've committed to. That takes some leadership skills all the way to should we say, the top of the organization. Slightly different forms of leadership, but it's all about, for us, it's about creating the right culture. It's about leading by example. Everybody should be seen to be focused on delivering what we've set out to achieve. They should be absolutely accountable for their actions. Each of us has to take personal accountability for what we say and what we do. And we encourage that across, I would say, every conversation, every action that we take. So what are some of the other things we do apart from leading by example? I would say is we obviously set clear examples, and we try to set clear targets. We definitely think that rewarding both the positive examples that we find, but also calling out the negatives is very important in terms of driving that accountable culture, and talking about it not in a negative way. As Wally was saying earlier, I mean, sometimes it's having the comfort to be able to speak openly and building that trust that there aren't necessarily negative consequences from, should we say, unexpected outcomes. And then I think maybe two other key elements of that culture being built would be empowerment. So we have a very clear delegation of authority that we encourage decisions to be made as low down the organization as possible. And we try to make sure it's very clear what you're allowed to decide and what you're not allowed to decide, so that people feel safe and feel comfortable, and they know when they need to ask for, should we say, somebody else's authority to be given. And we spend a lot of time and effort on training, both in terms of formal training and the more informal training, the feedback, rewarding, sometimes just with a few words, the positives, but also calling out those negatives that we mentioned before.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. You were already getting into some of the questions that I'm actually still going to ask you, but let's just step back. Now that you've told us how you encourage accountability amongst employees, how then do you know that it has been successful? How do you know that, okay, there's actually a culture of accountability, an ingrained culture of accountability and responsibility taken amongst the employees or in the workplace as a whole? I
believe that's something that you'll probably, maybe it's a simple answer, but it's clear by the results. If you're involved in an organization that has accountability deep in its DNA and people are acting to get things done, then things get done. And surprisingly, your results will improve. Your share will improve, your sales will improve, your efficiencies will improve. And of course, in terms of things like engagement surveys, you'll see your scores and your trust scores building. So I would guess the measurement, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We're off for a bit.
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I was saying, so of course we do a little bit of work with, surveys and with checking, but I think the key measure that we would say in terms of is accountability spreading through our organization is in the performance and the engagement of the team.
Okay, so the results would definitely show that, okay, everybody is accountable because there's high quality results. It's
Absolutely.
just, thank you. So it's usually taken for granted that one way to ensure that the results of the company, or just the results are achieved, is by setting clear targets. And you said something about setting clear targets, really. But how I really want you to school us, take us through how exactly business leaders and executives can set clear targets for their teams, starting from the top of the ladder to even the entry level. Everybody knows that this is exactly what I'm supposed to do because my direct leader or my direct boss has set the clear targets for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, that's a very complex subject area, but I think it starts very simply with the company having a very, very clear vision and mission. And once we're very clear of where we're aiming, then you start to begin to understand exactly what do we need to do in order to get there. And we work very hard at being able to articulate not just what it is we're aiming for in terms of that leadership in sub-Saharan Africa, but also in terms of what does that mean that we need to be doing in terms of at the highest level, in terms of what products we need to be selling, in terms of what markets we might need to be in, and in terms of which customers we need to be working with, and whether we might need to consider new markets, be they geographical or segments of beverage. So we start at the very top with those questions, and then we work through the team in trickling down those big goals that we set into very, very clear objectives, which are articulated in our case with a number of different lenses. So we would do that with a 5-year vision, we would do that with a 3-year plan, and we would do that with something along the lines of an annual objective, which are then trickled down by each level into clear actions that are always aiming to deliver the bigger goal.
All right, thank you very much, James. Now let's come to the other part of the topic. We're talking about accountability and trust, and then there's also the part of empowerment. But before we go ahead, I'd like to remind our participants that you can put in your questions in the Q&A box as the session goes on, and I would check it and ask James here. So now let's go to, what role do you think trust and empowerment, empowering the employees, have in making people more accountable? So let me just let you answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I think of the trust being the ultimate goal, because an organization with high trust is the magic ingredient that I think a great place to work talk about, is empowerment is a critical part. And for me, how's the best way to think about this is that whilst we all naturally think we can do the job better than anybody, the truth is one of us cannot do everything that needs to be done. And therefore we have to delegate and we have to empower if we want to deliver the kind of results that are being demanded today. So empowerment for me is not an option. It's a critical part of business success. And the more you can empower, the lower down the organization, the better the results. Because if we have 800 people working for us and we can get 800 people aligned and empowered to make decisions and drive us forward, we're going to be going a lot faster and a lot more successfully than if it's just 1 or 2 people. So for me, empowerment is absolutely critical. It is, I don't know whether it's the fuel or the engine of performance, but it's certainly one of the integral parts that makes great results happen.
All right, thank you very much. So empowerment really is important to ensuring that people are able to even intrinsically be accountable, because they know that, okay, I've gotten this level of empowerment, I've gotten this level of training, and now I have to deliver on the task. So now let's talk about how do you ensure that empowerment is, okay, let me put it this way. How do you ensure that there is a balance between you empowering people and also you ensuring, you talked about calling out the wrongs. So how do you ensure that, okay, I'm empowering you, but I also need you to be accountable?
Again, it's a fantastic question. I think you're challenging me in terms of the way we make these connections, and I guess some of this becomes instinctive. But in a great company, I believe it's about creating the right environment to talk about these issues, about understanding that empowerment requires a certain amount of willingness to accept mistakes, a willingness to help people learn through doing. And what we do is we would say that we try to set a tone where we encourage people to make decisions. We encourage people to feel safe that if it turns out that there was a mistake, we use the phrase that if we should have gone right and we turned left, we can always, when we've turned left, we can turn right again, and then we're back on track. It's only 2 more decisions that are required to get us back on track. It's not the end of the world. So don't fear decisions that might turn out to be wrong, shall we say. Obviously, we seek to understand, and listening is a key part of empowerment, is making sure that you're talking and you're listening and you're helping and providing the resources that people need, and providing the environment where we can help people to deliver, I think is all very, very important part of how do we ensure that things that we want to be done are done.
All right, thank you very much. So, just sort of creating that environment where things can be talked about. So even when you have made a mistake, it's still something that can be discussed, because there's already that culture of openly accepting mistakes and then owning up to them and, of course, correcting them. That's very interesting. Now, I want you to give us very, very practical examples of when maybe a team became a lot more accountable as they were empowered. So take us through the before and after, before they were empowered and after they were empowered. How did their accountability levels increase?
I think I'm going to talk about 2 examples that come to mind, if I'm allowed. The first one is at a micro level, where we take, for example, we have what we call customer technical service teams who visit our customers to ensure that our product, the can, is being filled as efficiently as possible on the line. And what we try to encourage that team to do is, when they get there, is to solve the problem. They do not need to make a phone call. They do not need to ask for approval. They're there to fix the problem, and their success is very much through an empowered model of making sure that whatever problem they've been asked to go and help is fixed. And they are decision makers on the spot, and they understand their responsibilities, and they are judged not on did they get there and did they come back with the problem unresolved, but with only one thing, which is, was the job done? And is the customer happy? Are we able to fill more cans? Are the customer able to sell more cans? And again, the cycle of upward benefits just continues, because the guys on the ground are fixing the problem. They're taking accountability for the issue. They're fixing it, and they're absolutely empowered to make it happen. And I think that's one that anybody could understand and see how that can be quite simple. And then maybe a slightly different example is at a country level, where we had a new business set up in South Africa a number of years ago. Performance wasn't really there in terms of the results, whether that was in terms of the production output or the sales output. And what we did is we re-engineered the way we worked together as a team. And we did something in terms of a practical example, is we set in place at the leadership level. So all of the heads of departments sat in the room every morning, every single morning, and talked about just 3 things. And we got them focused on what were the 3 big things that we needed to do in order to get the business to move forward. And every single day we discussed that as a team, and we fixed any barriers that were getting in the way of those 3 key deliverables. And very, very quickly, there was a turnaround in the feeling of engagement. There was a clear step change in accountability, because people said this needed to be done before tomorrow. And what you saw again is this huge upward spiral of improved performance through a very live example at a country level, where the leadership team took took the simplicity of 3 key deliverables into significant improvement. And we saw the business results move from woeful to outstanding. We saw engagement scores and trust scores go through the roof. You will know from Great Place to Work, or the Great Place to Work team will have seen the numbers in a very short space of time. I'm sure we say bottom of the division towards the top half, upper. I think I can't remember the exact number, but let's say upper quartile. And it was fantastic to see, and that was just by changing the way that we empowered people and we made them accountable to 3 very clear key deliverables.
Oh, amazing. That's really, really insightful. Thank you very much. So we already have a couple of questions in the Q&A box, but I'd like to encourage other participants. If you have any questions, please put them in the box right now so that I can take them as we go on. But I have one last question for you, James. What advice would you give to other CEOs and executives trying to foster a more empowered and accountable workforce that really delivers the results that are needed? You know, the way you talked about in the scenario that you gave to us, and how your team was able to ensure that everything that needed to be done was done through empowerment. What advice would you give to other CEOs on how to do the same?
I think the first one would clearly be about the vision and the mission, and articulating a very clear, memorable vision and mission for everybody to understand what it is that we're trying to do. Some people might call that a purpose, a clear purpose. That's number one. Number two, I would be absolutely clear on the importance of the key values, and included in those values would of course be those critical things around empowerment and accountability. And then thirdly, for me, is one of my favorite sort of mantras would be engage, engage, engage. You can never engage enough, and engagement is a two-way process. It is an active activity. You have to decide to do it, whether that's on a personal level, picking up the phone and talking to everybody, whether that's in a meeting, whether that's in a town hall. But it's around continuously committing to engage, 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 and the power of basically communication, which is driven through that engagement, I think is where I would put my time if I had it all again, in order to deliver outstanding results.
Thank you very much, James. So there's power in engaging with people, because there's so much that you're going to learn from just ensuring that you're always in constant communication with your team members. Thank you very much. So I have this question from Emeka. Emeka says, how do you encourage your employees to go the extra mile for the organization, and how is this rewarded?
I don't know whether I would be going too far down some of our secrets in terms of confessing an answer to this, but basically I would be picking up on something that I also heard Wale talking about, which is about being very transparent about what the goals are, and then creating that enabling environment to help people, because most people actually enjoy being successful and hitting targets, and the critical part of that, of course, is reward. And whether that is a kind word, a pat on the back, or perhaps the most powerful of all is a little bit of cash in the pocket, I believe the reward and recognition part of it is an enormous part of the success of an organization. And I know, if I take Yemi, my HR, and his team across the group, is they do a lot of work on making sure that our reward and recognition is motivating, and is rewarding the right behaviors and the right results. And I guess that would be the biggest, and the biggest advice is probably the reward and recognition aspect. But you've got to get the other things right, because you don't want to be rewarding the wrong things.
All right, amazing. You know, I got the part where you talked about a little cash in the pockets. That was really interesting. But yes, you know the saying that.
Some feedback.
Let me just clear that.
I think somebody near you, Zaina, as
Okay, I think that's better now. You can hear me clearly.
we can.
Okay, great. So I have one more question from Abdegani. Abdegani says, beyond the long-term result, how do we measure trust index at individual level?
Trust index is, I mean, is almost a, it depends on how you view this. I would actually say I would focus more on what are you doing to build trust. I think if you think of when you do a survey, you're effectively looking backwards, and it's not going to help you necessarily to know that, you know, at this point in time, this is where people view me. I think it's really important to be investing every day in the things that build trust, and not worry about the score. If you like, the trust index, that's an outcome from doing the right thing. And if you start thinking that you need to be doing it the other way around, then that will be, shall we say, maybe counterproductive. So what builds trust is some of those things we talked about. It's empowerment. It's about it's accountability. It's about engagement. It's about building confidence and rewarding those that are active and taking responsibility for what needs to be done. And as you create those positive environments where that is enabled, then or by magic, you get the trust environment created, and then from there, there's no stopping the organization. So I hope that answers the question to, I think it was, did you say Abdegani?
Yes, that was the question. Okay. Those are all the questions I have. Let me just check quickly to ensure that I didn't miss any other question. Okay, yes, that's continuous engagement. Okay, this person was just putting in an answer to your question. So thank you very much, James. You know, the other time I was saying that when your followers, you know, I'm saying leadership and followership. Now, when your followers know that you care, then they would willingly want to do stuff because they know that, okay, even when I'm at my lowest, this person actually really does care for me. So I think that's the part about engaging and communicating and creating that culture that you talked about. Thank you very much, James, for sharing with us this afternoon. Now, yes, thank you so much. Now we're going to be moving to the next. Yes, it's a pleasure. Now we're going to be moving to the next session of the policy intervention series, and I will be handing over to Ngozi. Hello, Ngozi.
Hi, Zaina. Thank you so much. Thank you to Mr. James and everyone who has spoken, Afamere and Katrina.
Hi, Ngozi. Can you be a little bit louder?
Yeah, I'm trying my best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Ngozi Ekugo. Yeah, I'm a labor market analyst and correspondent at Business Day Media. I believe we've had a great time so far. So I'll be moderating this session with Maureen Adibua, the country manager for DHL Global Forwarding. Yeah, she'll be speaking on the topic, trust in employee well-being, prioritizing health, safety, and work-life balance, and how it can transform workplaces. Can you all hear me? Otamere, is it better now?
Hi, Ngozi. Kandri, your voice is very low.
Okay, so just using a makeshift platform. This wasn't I wasn't supposed to use a mobile phone, but yeah, there were some technical issues, so that's why I'm on this platform. But I just hope I'll really try my best to be audible. Hello. Okay. Just hold on a second, please.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hello. Is it better now?
Much better, actually.
Yes, much better.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So I was saying, my name is Ngozi Ekugo, labor market analyst and correspondent at Business Day Media. I will be moderating this session with Maureen Adibwa. She's the country manager for DHL Global Forwarding. She'll be speaking on the topic, trust in employee well-being, prioritizing health, safety, and work-life balance, and how it can transform workplaces. So we all know that health, safety, and work-life balance is really critical in today's world of work, and because it ensures that employees are healthy and it prevents burnouts, and it boosts morale, increases the productivity of the employee, reduces turnover, and enhances an organization's culture and reputation. And so this is why Great Place to Work recognizes DHL Global Forwarding for its focus on employee well-being, meaning the company has demonstrated exceptional workplace culture by providing a decent experience for its people, which is consistently linked to high productivity and profitability. So this year, DHL Global scored 89% under caring, an indicator by the Great Place to Work, which is a focus area related to well-being. So it's a pleasure having you here speak with us, Maureen. This session will last for about 25 minutes with questions, with 5 minutes leaving for questions. So please, attendees, participants are free to drop their questions in the chat room, in the Q&A section, and we'll take a few as time permits us. So Maureen, so can you briefly introduce yourself and can you share your role at DHL Global Forwarding?
Oh, thank you so very much, Ngozi. I'm really delighted to be here. And yeah, you've already introduced me, but I'll just go ahead and then do a little more introduction. As you all know, my name is Maureen Adibwa. I'm presently the country manager for DHL Global Forwarding Nigeria. And I've been on this role in the last 7 years, having 2 decades of, plus 2 decades of industry experience across almost all functions, call it management, operation, commercial, anywhere. I'm a lawyer and also a consummate professional, if I may call it that way. And I have the ability to energize others with genuine passion and then intention to win. I'm usually very intentional about it. There are 2 things about me I look at when it comes to success. I keep telling people about it, that life is not just, there's no remote control on life. You have to make it if you want to change it. If you need to go up there, you need to climb the stairs as well. If you look at life always, of course, the success is filled with a lot of obstacles. Anybody that tells you that life does not have any obstacles will actually be either trying to sway you into something that is not, but everything depends on how you tackle them, and that depends and defines the progress you've made so far. I, for one, does not believe in being nice. I believe in being kind. So that you don't distort justice. That's a few things I could say about myself. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I like the part where you said you don't believe in being nice, but in being kind. So that's very humane. Okay. Can you please describe describe your organization generally?
To describe my organization, that's, I don't know how to describe it in a very small measure, but I'm going to take a little of my time to describe it. I'll first of all start with our vision. Everybody knows that DHL is a logistic company, but we have a vision to be the logistic company of the world, the logistic company for the world, and also a post office for Germany. That's the main thing. We are all over in about over 220 countries and regions. And most times when we enter the market as first of all, as a logistic company, which is key for us. In DHL, our people are at the heart of everything that we do as a group. And that is why diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is our driving force. In whatever we do, we talk about people a lot. Somebody will ask you, what is it that is our raw material in DHL? The raw material we have here is our people. So you see why we drive that. We actively promote DEIB because we believe that that is the best workforce. We have to drive innovation. We also have to enable people so that they, on their own, can make a difference with their contribution. And if you don't enable them to make a difference with their contribution, that means they're not belonging to anything. That means they just stay away, they're on their own. They will not have any say in anything you're doing. It becomes like, okay, let me just go in there, tick the box and go away. So that's not one of the things at DHL. So our core competency is call it comprehensive management and visibility of international supply chain. But in as much as that it is, we have that focus on DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, which is the driving force for DHL as a business. So for many of us, we know that culture and well-being is tied together, is linked together. So that means your culture is likely to inform your beliefs. It is likely to inform your values. It is likely to inform your views, even your relationship, your interest, and your sense of belonging. That is the key thing. That is why DEIB is our key focus.
No, thank you very much. In fact, that kind of answers the next question I was about to ask, which is, I mean, because I know that well-being naturally matters in terms of decency for us all as employees, and then. But from your perspective, obviously, well-being is important to organizational success. But what can you just drive that down to how it affects performance? Well-being, employee well-being. How does it affect performance?
Oh, okay. Thank you so very much for that. Thank God I didn't dive in so much. I would have taken the answer. So for me, you look at we have to ask ourselves a question: why do we invest in people? Why do you invest in the well-being of an employee? The key thing is that investing in people and their well-being has actually emerged as a critical strategy of business successes, to be honest with you, and I've seen it down. It cultivates a thriving and sustainable workplace environment. Ask me why I'm speaking this big grammar. I'm not speaking it's not a big grammar. I'm just trying to drive it down so that you understand what when an employee is healthy, both mentally sound, their motivation, their focus, and job satisfaction naturally increases. If you're not, then you're taken away, you're distracted. There's no way you're going to be doing anything. That is, so once you ensure that employee well-being is one of the key things that you are investing in, the first thing you notice that it will lead to people taking fewer sick days in the office. People willing and ready to come to work. When they hear that it's a Monday, everybody's ready. In fact, one of the key things I noticed is that in my office, a lot of people don't like taking vacation. And I said, no, why don't you like taking vacation? Somebody said to me, sitting at home doing nothing means that something is missing. So they love coming to the office. So we try as much as possible. Even when they're on vacation, some of them will still come to the office and say, oh, they are doing nothing, but they just want to come and see the faces of the people. It's like making it a family and investing in them. And if you invest in them, definitely you get what you want. And for me, well-being is our ability to feel good and function effectively. That's the way I will summarize it.
All right, thank you so much. I really like the fact that you said your employees, even when they're on leave and they feel so bored and they would like to come to the office, and so it shows that this is not a toxic environment. It has a positive. The environment gives off a positive energy, and that is really good. That is what a lot of people look forward to. They look forward to working in great workplaces that ensures that they're happy and there's a lot of positive energy around. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Yeah.
A lot of. So if you look at it, there are a lot of sources where they did some survey. They've already said that. Where you see there's this detachment between an employee and the employer, 50% of employees detach simply because they feel it as they feel as if that the well-being of the employee, they have less commitment to that. So if you have less commitment to my well-being, the only thing I'm left with nothing but tick the box, wait for the day to pay my salary, and I'll take it and go. I'll feel less concerned about it. So there are quite a lot of studies there that actually has stated that. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. In your experience, how has the organizational approach to employee well-being evolved over time? You know, what trends do you see shaping the future of workplace well-being?
I think it's still going around that same thing. I thank you so very much. For me, boosting your employees' mental health is not just good for them as people sitting around them. It has demonstrated a lot of things. The impact on your bottom line. Impact on your bottom line, and a lot has happened. First of all, we see a lot of people now adopting a holistic approach to employee well-being. Why are they adopting that? Because if your employee is not, first of all, you have to ask yourself, what is the meaning of even the well-being? The most important thing, what is this well-being we were talking about? People keep talking about well-being. You have to be in the right frame of mind because life throws you all lows and high. You have to be in the right frame of mind, physically, mentally, and otherwise, to be able to put a shock absorber to it, to be able to absorb all the lows and all the highs that come your way naturally, because there are a lot of ups and downs everywhere. But if you are not in that state of mind, there's nothing you cannot withhold anything. So for me, for what I've seen happening now is they have adopted a holistic approach to well-being because they know that it directly helps their bottom line when we talk about profitability. Promoting work-life balance and integration is what is happening everywhere. That's the future now. We have to also encourage open communication about mental health. You know, prior to now, if you talk to anybody about mental health, the person might think that you're causing it. There's a bias there. You don't even discuss it at all. But now it is an open topic. You open it up, talk to people, feel their pulse, let them understand what is going on. Because if they don't understand what is going on in their lives, they might not even know how to screen it. They might not even know how to withhold it. They might not even know how to stop anything from happening. So it is not an open topic. So everybody knows that this is what is inked in now. So it is trending. Then the flexible work arrangement, where people, Corona taught us. Prior to now, I've always thought about flexible work arrangement. But of course, I had people that were my managers then who does not, because those old school guys, they don't want to change. I remembered when I was in Port Harcourt in DHL Express, each time I come out in the morning to go to work, I found out I waste about 1 hour in traffic. Once I'm out late, I go back to my house and I start working. I send emails out. So when I come to work, I go straight to my manager to report myself. I came late. And the first thing he will say, oh, I didn't notice you were late because I've seen emails going out. And I said to him, why I came late simply because that 2 hours I would have wasted in traffic. I would have used that to achieve 1 or 2 things myself. So I decided to go back to do that. Then I will come to the office in 15 minutes, do other things, and they will tell me to go. So, but then a lot of them, we call them ward round then, because they go around to see the people that are in the office and the people that are not in the office. But it's no longer happening now. We're actually encouraging people because you are more productive working from home, be honest with you. In Lagos, for instance, coming from my house to this place, being in traffic for 2 hours does not make any sense. What productivity is it? If you have people that can actually work from home wherever they are, why not? Encourage them, make sure that everything is set and give them all the things that they need. Because what you are actually building up is the culture of trust. What you're trying to build up is the culture of people being passionate knowing very well that they can ask themselves question, what have I achieved today? And not the question of ticking the box and moving away.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I like the fact that you've always been a non-conformist, even before the work from home thing, a trend started. You kind of demonstrated it already, and you were able to deliver results and affect the bottom line eventually. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
So thinking about health and safety, how do you ensure that health and safety practices are not just policy driven, but are embedded in the culture, starting from leadership down to frontline employees?
So when we talk about health and safety, it is so key for me in terms of the kind of business I do here and everything. We have actually a department that actually look into that from the top. Yes, we have a department, HSC department, and we have a manager there. We do audits, regular audits, to confirm that everything. So it starts. They say that charity begins at home. So the top management will have to take that into consideration, do that themselves. If you don't lead by example, you don't expect anybody to do anything for you. Here, health and safety is key for my business and what I do. But in Nigeria, nobody bothers about health and safety. So for us, we try as much as possible to go out there and then teach. Let people learn, practice it ourselves, ensure that anything that requires health and safety is given out to individuals. So we do the audit regularly, we do the survey, and we listen to the team members as well. And you ensure that if you see, when you see something, say it. That's the most important thing. But you don't see it and then keep quiet. If you see it immediately, report it immediately, we'll take it out, and there's a lot of checks and balances everywhere, even in my warehouse and everywhere. So everybody conforms to it, and it becomes part of our DNA.
Okay. How do you identify? How do you find out what employee preferences and needs are around their well-being? Like, how do you identify what each particular employee needs in terms of well-being in your organization?
In terms of well-being in my organization, we have suggestion box. We fill their boxes. We fill their posts. Yes, we do that. We go around. In fact, there's something we did with my senior management team, because my office is not just in Lagos, it is also in Port Harcourt as well. And I have different offices in Lagos. So within a month, a group of people will have to, maybe 3-4 people will move out of the office to work in another location. You engage them, ensure you encourage them when it comes to open communication. They will be able to say what we have that suggestion box there, which is anonymous. So nobody is actually going to know who actually suggested that or who did not suggest that. But you also try as much as possible to encourage that, to make sure that nobody is actually victimized because they suggested something. And you yourself as a leader will have to be very open and very transparent. Those are the key. So we do the survey. The survey, they suggest what they want, and then we look at what they want and then see what can be changed. In several locations, we were able to use their suggestions to implement a few things that are within our control, the ones that we know that we can control. We do that and then change most of those things, definitely.
Okay. Thank you so much. I mean, I like the fact that surveys are involved, and employees are free to make their suggestions, and then the company can use that to identify what needs to be done. Please, I'd like to encourage the attendees, participants who are just joining us, please kindly dropping your questions in the Q&A section, and then we'll just try to take it up from there. Okay. I would like to know, so how do you measure the impact of your organization's well-being work, the well-being efforts? How is it measured?
I have Thank you very much. I have so many parameters I use with my HR and then the senior management teams as well.
Mm.
The first thing I try to do is that we look at the staff turnover rates. What is it like? We do regular also employee survey as well. We try as much as possible to look at the utilization of leave balances, because that is key for me. When people are not taking their leaves and keep working, you have to say it. You have to tell them to take their leave, because otherwise they are going to burn out. And when they burn out, it becomes an issue for us. We try as much as possible to do psychological safety assessments, which is one of the things I also already had told you about, that make sure that we know that they have all they need in terms of PPE or anything. We do feedback and suggestion system during town halls and stuff. So most of those feedback that come in during town hall, I address them, or any other person would address them. We do physical health metrics as well, checks, and get people in to do to try as much as possible to do some physical checks as well on employees. In Nigeria here, you find out that people, most of the key things that we have, the issue we have is that people don't like going to the hospital. They don't like to go, and then the doctor will tell them, this is what we found out that is wrong with you. But we encourage that. So people at least once in a year, go and do your health check once in a year and confirm that everything is working well. We also do productivity metrics. We look at it, look at how productive we are, what has gone wrong, So with that productivity metrics, you'll be able to know when something is really going wrong, or when there's need an addition, or we need reduction as well. Then we look at employee engagement rates, which is most of the key things for me. And for me, we have, like my HR, we have an HR calendar where we have things that happen on a monthly basis. So everybody, and we distributed it to all the staff. So we already know what happens. Sometimes, they already know that Father's Day is coming. The guys will tell us, oh, Mother's Day has come in, Women's International Day, this is Men's International Day. We all know that. Everybody have that calendar, because HR will share it beginning of the year. So it is one of the key things. That's one of the key things that we've done for people. So you don't even forget. Even when you try to forget and it falls in on a weekend, see somebody sending a WhatsApp message, don't forget that Men's International Day is coming. We are celebrated women. You guys must celebrate. So it's usually fun for us to work like a family. Then they can actually reach out to you without fear or favor, without anything. People can reach out to you, tell you. In fact, they will tell you when they think that something is not going wrong, something is actually going wrong. They can pick up the phone to call me. Oh, I felt something is actually not going wrong. Can I see you? I will say, come to my office, you see me. If you can't talk to me, you can talk to the HR, or you can talk to any other senior management team. The truth of the matter is, if you don't feel the pulse of these employees and don't understand what goes wrong, then your business is at a risk.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for sharing the great things you do at DHL Global Forwarding. I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious that it's a great place to work, given the attention to employee well-being. So I'll just quickly look at the questions. I don't know if I can't seem to find much question. I guess the people are kind of satisfied, and you have a lot of your employees, your colleagues here praising your session.
Oh, really? Yeah. I can't see them. They should ask questions in case there are things that you guys think I'm missing that you are still not getting from our side. This is an opportunity for you to ask. If it's within my reach, you know that it will happen. Because the most important thing is that you have to be alive to work, and health is wealth. I tell them, I talk to them as well, and I tell them that health is wealth, no matter how bad it is. We all come from different homes, but we spend the better time in the office. I don't even spend the number of hours I spend with my team member. I don't spend that with my husband, to be honest, because when I get home, you're tired, you want to sleep. But you come to the office, you work from money. So what is it? The only other thing is to promote that well-being. And then one more thing I would like to do. This well-being that we're there, we're not just driving it from Nigeria. We drive it also from the region. In fact, this month, we already have a calendar from day 1 to the last day of the month on employee well-being. change habits, change behavior, eating well, and so many other things. Physical exercise. And then there's something we call walkathon. When we started that, it's from the regional office, but we'll try to do something here. For one whole month, each employee, it's like a challenge for everybody. And there's something incentive at the end of the day to make each person walk. You have 25,000 steps every 25,000 steps every day. So 25,000 steps every day, you find out that every employee within the Middle East and African region are there, and we all do that. And at the end of the day, people get some incentivized at the end of the day.
Awesome, excellent. Thank you so much. You've said it a lot, and I think everyone is fed. Everyone is well informed now on how important this well-being is, because this mental health narrative is really strong now, and I think companies are best positioned now to start to implement this, to their workforce. Thank you so much. I'll be handing over now to my colleagues Zainab and Patrina. Thank you very much, Maureen.
Thank you very much,
very great session with you there.
Thank you very much. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to talk to people. Thanks.
Thank you. You're welcome, Ma. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thank you very much, Ngozi and Maureen. That was absolutely wonderful. It was insightful. I mean, the fact that you actively promote employee well-being. And in fact, I was just looking at the chat box and I was looking at how many people are saying, oh, the best MD ever, great CEO to work with. So it shows that you're talking about what exactly goes on at DHL, and also how CEOs and executives can also promote employee well-being as well, to ensure that every employee is having a great, wonderful time. So thank you very much for that beautiful session. So we're going to be moving next to the final session. This will be moderated by myself and Patrina. We're talking to the CEO of Credit Direct, and we're talking about trust through transparent leadership and employee engagement, building open channels and a culture of inclusion. We're talking to Chukwuma Nweze, the CEO of Credit Direct. Hello, Mr. Chukwuma, are you in with us?
Good afternoon. Yes, I am. Good afternoon.
Hello, Chukwuma, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, I think your audio is a bit, your volume is a bit low. Do you mind trying to increase it or something?
Okay, just give me a minute.
Okay, all right. All right, so in the same vein, the same way we had the previous sessions, everybody who's on the call, thank you so much for being with us. If you have any questions along the line, it would be appreciated for you to put in your questions in the Q&A box, so that as we're taking the session, we're also seeing your questions and we're also able to ask the speakers at the time. I don't know if Chukwuma is back with us so that we can kickstart. I will do the first half while Patrina will do the second half of this session.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, it's absolutely, it's crystal clear. It's wonderful.
All right, great. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you with us. I really, I've introduced you already, but I really would like you to give us a more robust introduction of who you are and what your role at Credit Direct is.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chukwuma Nweze. I currently work as the Chief Executive Officer of Credit Direct. Credit Direct is the fintech arm of the FCMB group. Our focus really is on credit payments, banking services to merchants, as well as digital wealth in the retail format. My role does not only involve leading the organization, but also involves championing what I would consider an evolving landscape around transparency and open communication. That culture for me is very important. I am passionate about fostering workspaces where everyone feels they belong. I mean, I like to argue that when you're leaving home, I want a workplace that feels like home. So it's a place where they feel that they belong and they contribute to how the organization achieves its collective corporate goals.
All right, thank you very much for that really wonderful introduction. You know, you were already talking about the work culture at Credit Direct, and it's really, I was still going to ask you to describe your organization in terms of the work culture. How would you describe Credit Direct? To give us a more in-depth answer.
Okay, I think I like to think of Credit Direct as an organization that prioritizes its people. I mean, we're a financial institution, and so it's easy for one to think about profitability first. But I think philosophy is that we really prioritize our people, our purpose, and of course, profit. We think of these things as inseparable. I believe we're committed to creating an inclusive environment that allows for openness, trust, that shared purpose, and ensure that these things drive everything that we do. We strive to be that workplace where everyone's voice matters. So employee voice is something that we take dearly to, and allowing for structures that make sure employee voice is incorporated into the everydayness of the organization is something that we believe in. We like to say that we're a great place to work for a reason. We believe that the people make the organization, and the ultimate mental cerebral state of the people helps the organization achieve what it's set out to do in the first place. So that's how I like to describe our organization. It's beyond the profits, which we know we do great at, but our people, our purpose are extremely important to what we represent. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So people, purpose, and profits, that's literally sort of sums up what the work culture at Credit Direct is. So thank you very much. Now, I really would like us to start by examining what you think transparent leadership, open communication, and employee involvement really means. What are the impacts that all of these elements have on creating a great work culture?
I think transparency, or if I put it this way, I think transparent leadership goes beyond sharing information or providing that access to information. I think it's about creating a culture where employees can be informed, but more importantly, are involved. So it's one thing to make information available, but it's how do we get employees to be informed and involved. I think leaders have to actively invite input, allow for two-way dialogues, make decisions that employees can see and understand. And you see, these things they may sound like an easy thing to talk about, but two-way dialogue can be very tough sometimes. In fact, we just finished our 2025 planning session, and I recall one of the sessions we had was for a nearly 6-hour dialogue on the tough issues. And about 30 of us were locked in a room, and it wasn't very comfortable, but it was honest, it was passionate, but we knew that we left the sessions better off for it. And I think it's something that we allow for. I mean, transparent leadership requires a level of vulnerability where leaders are not in themselves thought of or believed to be superstars. And beyond the vulnerability, there has to be elements of accountability. And in fact, in that session, it came up strongly that we need to be more accountable. And accountability sometimes may appear to be an attack on a person or an attack on a person's ego, let me put it that way. But for organizations to ultimately thrive, leaders have to show those elements of vulnerability and accountability. And that's essential to building a trust-based relationship where employees ultimately feel respected and empowered to share their insights and concerns. Yeah.
All right. You know, the part where you talked about sometimes accountability might want to feel like an attack on the leader's ego, and it should not always be like that. It shouldn't even be like that as well. It may not be comfortable, but it's important. And I really would like you to give us, you know, like a practical example of when maintaining transparent leadership sort of maintain trust. So you want to give us a scenario when maybe you, I don't know, but were transparent and then trust between the two conversants was maintained because of that.
I think recently, I mean, I'll use this session I talked about. I mean, as CEO, I was leading the conversation on, oh, okay, these are some of the pain points we've experienced. These pain points are as a result of, in some instances, where there are divergent of views because of how the two parties refuse to see it. So I'd gone on orchestrating that conversation. And when I was done with that aspect, someone said, so boss, we need to talk about how you handle some issues, right? And how in that context, I'm not able to paint the full context, but the summary of it was that there was an issue at work. I had pretty much listened to one side of the story, and I was going to make a decision based on it. So imagine a world where our CEO are saying we need to be more trusting, we need to collaborate better, and then someone calls me out, you know? It's not very Nigerian. I mean, maybe Petrina may not know that, but it's not very Nigerian. But for me, it was a very important point in that conversation. And the person was absolutely correct, because I was making a decision without having all sides of the narrative brought to the fore. And I had to apologize, and I had to say to the guys, you need to call me out, right? And you know, it may not be very African or Nigerian, but I think for organizations to achieve or attain their max potential, leaders should be able to face those moments and face them objectively and honestly. Once your colleagues see that, okay, we can actually have conversations with candor, it becomes a very important step in building trust and transparency within the organization. Tomorrow, that person knows that, okay, I can come to you, have this conversation, and then, you know, we can make progress from there. Not easy, because tough, transparent, trust conversations especially are not always easy, but I think they will be a significant element in how great organizations differ from regular organizations.
All right, thank you very much. You know, when you said that it's not a very Nigerian thing, or it's not a very African thing, I was just imagining if the person who called you out was even Gen Z, and then it would have been like, oh, okay, it would have been a generational thing, really.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to be able to be transparent and to be able to be clear with each other and say, okay, this was wrong, and you know, you owned up to it, and that's maintained the trust. That's really important to this conversation. Thank you. So now let's talk about you know, leaders usually have the full information of certain things before the other employees. How do you manage expectations of transparency when there's like sensitive information that you're not able to share at the moment with the rest of the team? So there's sensitive information, but everybody says, there's already a culture of transparency, but you cannot share that information yet, and everybody's expecting it. How do you manage such a situation?
I think first and foremost, and that's a very important question, not all information can be disseminated, right? But I think where an environment of trust has been built, what leaders owe the organization is to paint a context where not everything can be talked about, but when we are not talking about it, in fine details, right, we would have explained what the objectives and the destination is in the broader in the broader sense of it. So it's important to establish clear guidelines around transparency and communication, and that's something I believe. And for you have to do that from day one. You have to know. I think of it as communication or shareholder mapping, or communication mapping within the shareholder structure. Not everyone can handle all the information at a particular point in time. And I think it's important that we are open about it. We need to explain why some information may remain confidential. Sometimes it's actually in the interest of the organization that you don't hear everything. Not everybody, and not everyone at every level can deal with some of the information that here. And I think because it's also quite dicey, yeah, people may feel that, oh, why are they giving this category of employees this information and we can't get that same information? It's clear from that you inform the organization why these things are happening and say, okay, some changes are about to happen. I'm unable to paint the full picture here, but I want you to remember this organization looks out for its employees. Your happiness is important to us. If the context is created, right? And as the leader, you're actually doing everything within your leadership capabilities in that moment to ensure that you're true to your values, you're true to what you have committed to. And it may not always work. And this is the tricky thing. You may not be able to convince everybody every time. But if there's transparency, there's honesty, there is an authentic view to how you lead, a larger majority will believe, and the organization will be, saying for it.
All right, thank you very much. The part where you said you may not be able to convince everybody every time, it's absolutely true. And not everybody would be able to handle different kind of information. So it's sometimes best that it's not known to everybody, but when there's that level of trust, they just know that, okay, this person is not out to get us or out to harm us, basically. Mm-hmm. So I have one last question before I hand over to Petrina. And this says that the Great Place to Work has a research that showed that two-way dialogue as well as information sharing is critical to achieving trust. And I think you already highlighted that in some of the things that you said. But how do you then involve employees in decision making? I want you to give us clear channels, strategies, approaches that you use to ensure that, okay, everybody, including the employees, are involved in the decisions that we are making.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Zainab. So once again, decision making happens at different cadres within the organization, right? One of the things we do with what may be general is, so we're a very engaged and engaging organization. For example, every quarter, I would have a conversation with absolutely every employee within the organization. It's a very stressful process, but I will have maybe 30 groups where I'm talking to 25, 30 people per group. And I just really want to give information that is required at that point in time and get that feedback. Now, because it's a smaller group of people, it's easy for one to have a quick dialogue and then get inside. I'll give you an example. I became CEO of Credit Direct in 2023, right? And for a new CEO who was taking over, there was the natural pressure to want to, make your mark and then see growth and things like that. But the first quarter was very difficult, right? And I remember I was just walking close to the walkway one day, and someone walked up to me, and she just said to me, your employees are not happy, right? And the performance wasn't great, but said the employees aren't happy. And that triggered something in me. And I said to my chief people officer, hey, we need to talk to guys. For me, that has been the biggest turnaround in my journey as CEO, because we spoke to every single person. And that's where we even started it. We spoke to everyone. We ended up finding out there were 7, 8 things that were bothering the vast majority of people. And we solved for it. the turnaround is still something that keeps me amazed today, because not only did we see growth within the next quarter, we've now seen it become very habitual. I think the business has grown 3 times in the last 18 months. So for me, that communication is important. So we have the channels where, we leverage digital platforms. We use Microsoft Teams. We've had a meeting today that had north of 600 employees on the call. We ensure that on those calls, even if they are virtual, there's a high level of engagement. We use tools like Mentimeter, like Kahoot to, ensure that the learning or the information that is disseminated is reinforced. We have different engagement sessions. I think on a monthly basis, there's something that brings people together. And this is outside our human resource business partnering structure that helps even bring organizational decisions closer to the people, right? So those are some of the things we do. I like something that was incorporated early this year, like a body program where people have some sort of someone they look up to, not even the CEO or management team in this context, but someone who can, body them, and then they can get some information that will help them, especially when you're a new hire. So those are just some of the things that we do within the organization. The results are very impressive.
All right, thank you very much. I think there's somebody with an unmuted microphone. Please mute your microphone so that we can hear. Yes, thank you very much. All right, so thank you very much. Your responses actually remind me of a particular organization that I belonged to while I was in school. But I think I'm just going to hand over to Petrina at this point so that she would carry on with the other half of the questions. Petrina, over to you.
Thank you so much, Anna. Chukwuma, so nice to see you again. How are you?
Yes, thanks, Petrina. I'm very well. Nice seeing you once again.
Thank you so much. We've had the pleasure, everyone, of talking before on one of our great conversations. And so, well, to take a deep breath and carry on the conversation. So I know from talking to you before and again today that you're really passionate about listening and engaging and employee engagement. So I wonder if you could perhaps tell us some of the secrets of how you drive an environment where all views are really valued. And so it's really valuing people as individuals and all views are valued.
I think first, and thanks for that question, Petrina. I think first and foremost, right, what you have to have at the back of your mind that, one, as the leader, you don't know it all. And the reason why we have hundreds of people in our organization is because at the point of entry, we believed that it had some value to create or some value to add. And so for me, it's more of a case of being intentional about listening out for that value. So that commitment to listen cannot be compromised. Secondly, I think it's important that we are intentional about building, if we are to build inclusive and open organizations, there'll be need for leaders to continuously engage and understand what guys or their colleagues or employees in the organization think about. It has to be intentional. So the reality is that every one of us can get so busy with work. And with the tough macroeconomic realities we face in Nigeria today, everyone is playing catch up, making sure the organization remains afloat. But like I'd always like to say, people are easily the most important resource in the organization. Innovation, transformation is encapsulated in the workforce that you have. Listening out intentionally from there for what they have to say, right, will help you achieve that. So for me, it's let's be committed to listen. Let's ensure we always engage. Let's create, whether formal or informal avenues, right, to make employees show their worth. Just a quick example of something that happened with us last year. What I think has been one of the most successful employee engagement initiatives that we've had at Credit Direct was something that someone who wasn't even a manager had a suggestion, right, on how we can drive innovation within the organization. And it wasn't in a very formal setting. We got guys who weren't at the leadership team to drive that initiative. From that event, we had 3 brilliant ideas. Those ideas today are contributing significantly to the bottom line, improving customer experience. And, you know, and it's when you look at the root of where that benefit has come from, it's just come out from a listening world. And actually something I'll encourage CEOs and leaders generally to believe. There's a reason why you brought in these guys. There's value that they have to disseminate, listen out, and ensure that there's a workforce that allows for it.
Thank you so much. I particularly like the sort of sentiment of sort of remembering that you chose this person because of the value they can add. Remember that value and don't forget and keep benefiting from it. What advice would you give to fellow chief execs who want to build a more inclusive and open organization?
I think first they should lead by example. I mean, so you're the leader for a reason. And I think leaders have to hold themselves, or CEOs have to hold themselves to the highest standards of accountability possible. Again, that's not an easy thing to do, but if you're going to achieve the success you want with your organization, you have to be above board, right? It's what I really believe. Again, I like to say that when you lead by example, then you begin to see your colleagues see the values you're trying to pass across. It becomes quite easy for them to adopt and adapt your methods. And then there's a cultural transformation. So if you want to drive a high performance, if the culture you want to imbibe in your organization is a high performance culture, your colleagues have to see that you're a high performance CEO. They have to see that you put in the work that you say they should put in. And once they see it, it becomes easy for more people to say, you know what, let's go for it. And Credit Direct is an amazing example of what that has been. Even though we still say to ourselves we can do a lot more, but in such a very short time, we've seen how that kind of philosophy drives transformation within the organization. So again, like I said, it's important that we listen. Yes. Again, we listen not from our own biases as leaders, but have an open mind to incorporate feedback. I mean, being a leader suggests that, okay, you've had certain competencies and capabilities, you've had certain experiences, but once that is great, it doesn't form everything, right? So there should be that willingness on an intentional part to listen. Sometimes it may come across as you being weak because it looks like, oh, you're trying to get a lot of feedback. In fact, I would argue that the best leaders are leaders who can listen effectively and extract value and synthesize that value in the ultimate decision that is made for the betterment of the organization. So that's just something that I think I'd like to leave with fellow CEOs.
Thank you so much, Chukwuma. So effective listening is key. And I'm interested, so people might see that as a weakness, but in fact that humility sounds powerful. Thank you. And and people need to lead by example. People need to see and believe in order to know how it's done, to role model it, so it cascades. Thank you so much. Well, should we have a look and see if we have any questions? We have a question from Abiodun, who says, how best can an employee present a matter that will not be seen as an attack on a personality or office?
I think first, I think being authentic, right, about how you present a situation goes a long way. And it's two ways, right? You're the one disseminating or trying to communicate an information. There's someone who is meant to act on that feedback. But I think the onus is on you to objectively and as authentic as you can be, present the fact. We all know that there are different, there are ways we need to, there are interpersonal skills we need to improve on, especially when we are communicating depending on the level of hierarchy. But again, it also speaks to the kind of culture that's in the organization. An organization that is, for lack of a better word, very patriarchal, will require a different way of presenting information. Where you have a more flat structure, you present a different way. I mean, if you're in a very Gen Z organization, the leader also, for example, has to have extreme buffers to take questions the way they are. So I think the context of the organization, but more importantly, the authenticity and the manner of approach would help, especially when, and it should be fact-based, not emotionally driven. It should be facts and reality-based, yeah.
Thank you so much, Chukwuma. So there's something about being authentic, there's something about evidence or fact-based, but there's also something about recognizing, adapt one's style to match the situation, sort of thing.
Yeah.
My work, being mindful of the audience and the context.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'll just have a look. I think, yes, we have answered the questions. So I think it just remains for me to thank you so much, Chukwuma, on behalf of myself and Zainab and us all. It's been lovely to see you again and talk with you again. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrina. And thank you, Zainab. Yeah, I see you, Tamara. Thank you always.
Thank you, Chukwuma, for excellent session once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
We always say that having companies like you around, companies like yours around, would do a lot for this economy. Keep up doing the good work you do at Credit Direct.
Thank you. Thank you, Tamara.
Take care. Thank you. So, dear panelists, this is our session. Nice to be able to get a feedback around some of those high points. I think some of those things stood for me. When Marwan said, we had, in one word, in one sentence, described us and said innovation and steroids. Oh, but what came to your mind when you heard that?
Yeah, yes, I love it, and I loved hearing Wole's passion and just beautiful phrase. Some phrases really stick with you, and that one really did. Yes, yeah, and I was also very struck from the session as a whole by what a wonderful opportunity and power leaders have to drive innovation and continuous improvement and drive that no fear culture that frees everybody up to talk.
And in choosing these companies, indeed they're great workplaces, but we basically picked them knowing their strengths or their greatest strengths. And for Wema Bank, it's about innovation. He had mentioned being able to have the first digital bank globally. And when we did a survey with them this year, their innovation score was a score of about 90-something%. Or was it 93%? Showing that employees have great trust in the level of innovation in that organization. Like I had mentioned, they have a number of innovation or ways to drive innovation within the organization. They have this hub where ideas are encouraged to come in, even ideas from customers. So as a customer, I'm able to log on to the Wema Bank portal and share my ideas on ways they can improve the experience, customer experience. And like he had mentioned, it's more about the process. It's not about the ideas in its entirety. It's about being able to contribute to that process that earns you some recognition or some reward as they go along this journey.
Yeah, yes, I was very struck as well by Wole talking about, how all ideas are good ideas and we reward effort as well as outcome. And so it was about encouraging the process. And he obviously talked about rewarding achievement, but also rewarding ideas and having those great structures in place that mean the ideas will come to you and there'll be a great feedback loop. But I think the thing that struck me from the third thing which she talked about was what I've noted down as listening culture. So actually leaders need to be deliberate, intentional, and take it seriously. And Chukwuma, I know I can see you're still with us. It felt to me that that was also very important to you and important to your view of success in terms of transparent leadership. And so I felt this afternoon a bit of a thread of listening.
Excellent. Zainab, what about your session with the chief CEO of GZ Industries? What were your high points around that session?
So I really enjoyed that session particularly. We were talking about just sort of ensuring accountability and empowering people. And that scenario where he painted that after empowering a team, they were able to ensure that what needed to be done was done. And afterwards, there were improved levels of accountability because they had come together. They saw that the business leaders were also on that same problems. It felt like, okay, if the executives or if the leaders can be on this problem, then it means that we should be able to also take responsibility. And then there's also this part where he talked about people who are on ground, say at the factories, at the plants, and they are empowered enough to take responsibility for whatever problems. So they're not waiting for a boss or a CEO or the team lead to tell them what to do. They know that, okay, this is a problem that we can take initiative to fix immediately. And I think there was also this part where he talked about how the culture of fear is usually built. It's like when people make genuine mistakes and you bring out the sledgehammer, that's when the culture now becomes muted. People aren't talking because they fear that you would use their mistakes against them. But when you allow them to genuinely learn from those mistakes, when you allow them to say, okay, this has been done, this has happened, but let's learn from this and let's take it, let's correct our mistakes, then you know that, okay, the culture of trust is being built in terms of accountability, in terms of people being able to take responsibility for their task. So that was something that stood out for me.
Yeah, he had mentioned that listening is a key part of empowerment for all, because we see that listening, we have in Great Place to Work what we call the 9 practice areas. One of those practice areas is around listening. And we see that listening is usually one of the biggest challenges. It's easy for leaders to speak, but leaders to listen can be a big challenge. And so when he said listening is part of the empowerment process, it struck with me because he had mentioned the fact that there were some challenges around part of the business. I remember also to having the engagements with them initially when those challenges came up, and how over a few years, this entity that was part of the group has become really, really better engaged because trust levels have improved. It's something as a testimony for us that we see and share with the larger audience for what we do. Excellent session we had with him. Ngozi, what about your session with Maureen? My apologies to viewers. We had challenges around Maureen's session around the cameras and all of that came in with that session. But beyond that fact, it was a great session. You could hear from her voice the passion she had around employee well-being. And indeed, one of also, like we mentioned, being able to have companies who excel in those areas. She was able to showcase the excellence in employee well-being in DHL Global Forwarding.
So certainly, it was a great session. I mean, she was able to practically demonstrate how DHL has demonstrated great, best practice in employee well-being for its employees, and she was also able to. The session also enabled one to understand that it's this sort of practices affect the culture of the company and the perception. And eventually employees will become motivated, and that would increase performance and eventually create productivity, which would affect the bottom line eventually. Because human beings are the greatest assets in any organization. You need human beings to drive the vision. You need human beings to create policies. You need human beings to do the groundwork, to get their hands dirty. You need human beings to carry out the operations in an organization. So therefore, that human being needs to, that human being's overall health needs to be taken into account, mental health, physical health, things like relaxation, what makes them give them that work-life balance, and so basically, I also like the fact that DHL Global Forwarding also involves employees' inputs. They conduct surveys, surveys to understand areas of need, of each individual employee, and then they listen. So it basically is a listening organization. It's a listening organization, and I guess that's why they're a great place to work, and this is why a lot of companies, organizations need to listen, not just speak, but listen to the needs of its employees and its people.
Thank you very much. There's something she said. I don't believe in being nice. When she said that, I said, wait a minute. But what she now said, but in being kind. I don't believe in being nice, but in being kind.
Yeah.
Yes, this has some real meaning around it. People usually like to hear the nice things, but most importantly, it's about the nice things that you hear, the real facts around what you should hear at every point in time. And so invariably being able to be kind. And so that also probably says to me, you could be kind and hard, right? Did that appear to you to say, yes, I'm being kind, maybe because I see that the better good of this decision invariably would come out positively for you. So it might not sound nice, but invariably at the end of the day, it will be a kind and a nice decision that has been taken with regards to that session. Petrina, back over to you with Credit Direct. Well, what were your high points with the Credit Direct session?
Oh my goodness! Well, I'm sure Zainab will join in too. But I think for me, it was just lovely to hear Chukwuma's summary about what would you advise other CEOs who want to build a more inclusive and open organization. And again, he mentioned being intentional, and it struck me. Listen, we know that the healthiest organizations are driven by leaders who really care and are intentional. And Chukwuma used the word intentional, and he talked about leading by example and role modeling, but also about listening and deeper than just saying just listen. He talked to us about listening with an open mind, which he then went on to say about, that's and addressing it head on. He said that's not, some people might see it as a weakness. It's not about weakness. And I use the word humility. And I think for me, it was those three things. It was, you need to be intentional to really care, to make this work. You need to lead by example. And you need to do that. Listening again is really important, but with an open mind.
Yeah, I think for all the four speakers, there was one clear point around being deliberate. And so you're not just waking up and just you have to be deliberate around what you want to do and achieve. If employee well-being is your target, you want to be deliberate around the conversations you have, around the targets that you want to reach and achieve in terms of those areas. What about you, Zainab, around that session with Chukwuma?
Oh, okay. I absolutely enjoyed that session, where he talked about the fact that not everybody would be able to handle, when he was talking about sensitive information. And it's really important, right? Because certain things cannot just be disseminated to everybody. We would react to information differently. And so it's just sometimes best that the leaders have this. But when there's that level of trust, when there's that culture of trust amongst everybody, then they would understand, the employees or the team members would understand that, okay, this information cannot get to us yet because of certain things, but they trust that the team leader, they trust that the person at the helm of affairs always has their matter in heart. They always have their they always want the best for them, basically. And then the part where he talked about commitment to listening, and I think we already sort of flogged that already, but I don't think it can be overemphasized. Listening is very important, and it can't be compromised, the way Chukwuma puts it. And then he puts it the way when he described when he first came into his leadership position as the CEO of Credit Direct, and somebody sort of gave him an insight into what was happening. It was not that there were problems with business growth, but it was because there was a fundamental problem with the employees. They were not happy, things were going on with them, but they didn't know how to voice it, probably because that openness had not been created yet. So it was when they began to engage, when they began to discuss and communicate, then they saw that, okay, this is a problem. So, and then he said it won't be comfortable, but it's necessary. So I imagine him having conversations with literally every single employee at Credit Direct. It would be exhausting, but the impact, the way, especially with how he quantified it, that they've experienced business growth since that quarter, and even till now, it's like ×3 of what they would regularly do, because the people are happy, the people are engaged, and they know that, okay, this is a great place to work, and I'm just really excited to put in my work for this company.
Excellent. So I guess this is probably around where we draw the curtain on this very, very insightful session. Like we say in Great Place to Work, we are building a community of great workplaces across Africa. By extension, for what we do, we are able to cover our portions across Africa. And so we imagine, just for 1 minute, imagine if we have 50% of the companies in Nigeria. So we have the business, the Credit Directs of this world, we have the Wema Banks of this world, we have the DHLs of this world, we have the GZI Industries of this world. And so imagine that we have, for 2 companies in Nigeria, you have either a Credit Direct or you have a business or a DHL or Global Forwarding. Imagine what that would do to the Nigerian economy. Imagine if 50% of companies in Nigeria are great workplaces where employee voices are heard, where employees feel a sense of belonging, where employees feel part of. What that would do to the economy of this country, what it would do to the millions of families where great people practices exist, where employees come back home, not with all the baggage and all the challenges at work, but they come back home to their families, happy, being able to contribute positively to the environment, positively to their families and all the businesses across the globe. That would impact a lot on this economy. And you would agree with me that Nigeria is crying out at this time for a much better economy where people can thrive, where businesses can thrive. We see that companies where employees are happy, they are able to positively impact customers that they engage with on a regular basis. So there's a clear pathway around profitability. Chukwuma had talked about people, purpose, and profit. I dare say that most companies, it's usually the reverse. It's about profit, purpose, and people. But we can imagine if we begin to talk about the people aspect of the 3 Ps and how well it can impact on the purpose and the profit for businesses. I want to thank everyone who has been part of this session once again, and also to remind us the fact that tomorrow we will be awarding the 11th time in our existence, the best workplaces in Nigeria. Tomorrow we will be releasing the list of the best companies to work in Nigeria. I would advise that you stay tuned to us, our websites, our social media handles, to see if your company is on that list, or the great possibility of you reaching out to those companies where we have these great people practices. Once again, thank you very much, Petrina. Thank you, Zainab. Thank you, Ngozi, for your support, and George and his team who work behind the cameras. It's been great having this session once again. Hopefully next year we're able to have even a more robust session with another set of great leaders across Nigeria. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Goodbye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Also, I think I should also say kudos also to thank you for Business Day for having this partnership with us. We have a partnership with Business Day where we release articles on the daily, monthly basis around great workplaces, and we have this yearly conference where we are able to bring great leaders to share their insights. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Bye.